Good day, investors. Welcome to Vested with Jared Bowers. I am your host, and I am happy to be here for this 16th episode of the podcast. And you know what would make a really sweet 16th episode? If you would share this with a friend who you think would enjoy it or get something out of it. My goal with this is that it is useful and helpful. Not necessarily that there are a lot of people listening. But if it is useful and helpful, the more people that listen to it, the more helpful and useful it becomes. And the closer that I get to my ultimate aim, to help us and those around us invest better in the areas of life that we care about. And as far as ultimate aims go, that feels achievable. And podcasts grow mostly by word of mouth. Now, I have a question for you. If you were given $1,000 to spend on something that would bring you enjoyment, not make you happy, mind you. We know that money won't make us happy. At least that's what we claim to believe, even if many of us live our lives as though it will. Money can bring some happiness in the form of enjoyment, though. For sure. Especially when we're spending it on the right things. And there is a difference between bringing enjoyment and making us happy. So with that in mind, if you were given $1,000 to spend on something that would bring you some level of enjoyment, even just for a time, what would that be? Depending on who you are, that might be a whole lot to spend on your hobby or that thing that you want or that experience that you want. Or $1,000 might not be that much. And some are thinking on the experiencing side of things. A short trip, an epic night out with friends, some live entertainment, tickets to that expensive show for yourself and a friend, maybe a really nice spa day. And some of you will be thinking more on the things side of spending. A new phone, new equipment for that hobby, maybe a camera lens, music gear, something related to a favorite pursuit. You could be thinking about fashion, clothes, shoes, accessories. And for some, your mind will be going to buying back some of your time. Maybe house cleaning, lawn mowing, laundry service, meal delivery. And then a few will be thinking in an entirely other angle, which is how you could give it away or spend it on other people. That's very generous. Good job. Kudos to you. But interestingly, it might not be generous. It might be the most selfish thing you could do with your money. And that depends on our motivation. Because on the surface, anytime you give money away, it definitely looks like generosity. But some people donate money to get attention, to get accolades, to get attaboys. And that's how they buy those things. But I'm not supposed to introduce the judgmental part yet. Otherwise, I won't get honest answers. I did ask you what would bring you happiness. Sorry, not happiness, enjoyment. And buying attention or appreciation might be exactly that for some. And all of these things can be right answers. Any of these could also be wrong answers. Not wrong in the moral sense, but in the sense of whether it actually does bring you a little burst of, or that sustained bit of enjoyment that you were looking for, hoping for. And when I ask you that question, other factors are in play than just your wants and desires. When it comes to thinking about how we spend our money, many of us do so not just based on what we want to do, but based on what we think other people think we should do with our money. People care a lot about what other people think about their spending. I can't tell you exactly why. I definitely have theories and I've seen plenty of reasons for why. There are people who claim that they don't care one bit about what other people think, and they are going to spend their money exactly as they want to. And I don't think that that's entirely true. I have yet to find somebody who I really do believe spends their money solely based on how they want to and what they think is right or optimal. How other people see us spend our money is important to some degree to everyone. I fall into that myself. I know that what other people think of my spending matters to me. even if I try to convince myself that it doesn't, or that I shouldn't care. For example, let's talk about watches. I really like wristwatches. I know, how cliche of me. Wow, big surprise there, Jared. A finance guy who likes watches? Where do you guys get your cute little matching hobbies? Do you all decide what to like together at your finance conventions? Fair enough. It can't be the finance conventions because I don't go to those. It also applies to BMWs for some reason. But I'm happy to tell you that the hobby and the enthusiasm for wristwatches is represented by far more people than just finance bros. And there are a lot of ladies who are into it as well, for your information. So, if I find a watch that I really like, and then while researching it, I find out that the watch snobs of the internet, of which there are shockingly many, think that this watch is not so great. Maybe it's from a company who is without a revered history of watchmaking. Maybe the design isn't quite up to snuff for the snobs. Maybe it's too much of a knockoff in design, considered a copycat of some other brand's design. I have to admit that will sometimes, maybe even often, sway my liking for it. And you could be asking yourself, why do you care? Especially if it's from people who can be described as watch snobs of the internet. That alone should be a reason to discount or completely ignore anything they have to say about anything. And you know what? I agree with you. But it still matters for some reason. Not consciously most of the time, but subconsciously. But why do we care so much about what other people think of how we spend our money? From what I see, it is multifaceted. We have an innate, inborn desire for other people to approve of how we use our resources. We want to be seen as someone who makes good decisions. And what we do with our money can send that message, either quietly or loudly. We also want to make sure that we aren't wasting our money, which is a precious resource. So part of that is we look for other people for advice and for affirmation. And I think that's why a lot of us read online reviews, maybe too many online reviews, before we buy something. It's a way of crowdsourcing information on what you're thinking about buying, hopefully increasing the margin of safety for whatever we're going to be spending our money on to make sure that it's not a waste, or to make sure that it's a prudent, well-researched purchase. And by the way, be careful of online reviews. Usually they're highly representative of one extreme or the other. For most of us out there, how many reviews do we actually write ourselves for the things that we feel pretty good about? Probably 0. How many times do we feel pretty good about what we buy? Probably most of the time. To be motivated to write a review, we either have to hate it or we have to love it. The self-selection process of writing a review makes that review section not very representative of most people's experience. Just a side note. But another factor in caring about what other people think, in caring about how other people think we should spend our own money, there is often an element of conspicuous consumption. If you're not familiar with that term, it basically means being seen by other people, wanting to be seen by other people with how we spend our money. And what we spend our money on is one of the most powerful signals that we can send to others about our likes, our values, and our means. And if we send the wrong signal, or a signal that we didn't mean to send, especially if we send the signal loudly by spending a lot of money on something that is quite visible, that can put us at risk with the status games that we play. Doing something with our money that others would disapprove of can lower our perceived value. It can signal that our values don't align with the norms, or it can signal that we don't have good judgment. That can lower our status. And oh boy, do we care about status. Especially the people who say, I don't care about status. That phrase is almost universally used to try to raise their status by looking like they don't care about it. For some reason, looking like you don't care about your status is a pretty proven strategy to raise it in many cases, at least a little bit. Oh, this old thing, I only wear this when I don't care how I look. But the point of this episode is not necessarily why we care, what other people think of our spending. Right now, I'm just making the point that we do care. And when we care about something a lot, especially When it involves money and investing, I like to talk about it. So here we are. I'm going to now give you my opinion on what you should spend your money on. And you may be asking yourself, why should I care what he thinks about my spending? And you know what? You are right to ask that question. And I'm glad you are. But for some reason, as we just talked about, you do care, at least a little bit. Hey, I have proof. You are still listening. And most how to spend money content is painfully generic. I want to do something more with this topic that is more aligned with the philosophy of everything is investing that we have been talking through and building out. A lot of the advice that you'll hear around this is cliche things like, you're spending too much money on coffee and eating out. Millennials, put down that avocado toast. You need to focus on frugality. You're not doing enough to optimize for long-term wealth building. And some of those I don't care much about at all. Spend money on the coffee if you want to. But we all know that person who walks around with a $6 coffee every day, yet complains to everyone who will listen how little money they have. I'm pretty confident I'm not talking to that person. Not in this context, they're probably not listening. And I'm not going to focus this discussion today on optimizing for frugality or for wealth generation. We will talk plenty along those lines in the future. That is something that I care a lot about. As a teaser for that, spending and saving, more accurately investing, both need to be focused on. And that knee-jerk moral response of spending equals bad, savings equals good, is way too simplistic and gets a lot of people in trouble. Not as many people in trouble as overspending does, but it causes problems and keeps many of us from investing as well as we could. And that is along the lines of what you'll hear from most financial advisors, that you should spend less and save more. Sounds like good advice, right? And if you've been listening to me up to this point, you already know that I have a problem with that second part. Savings is weak sauce. Saving, as defined by holding money in a bank account or stuffing it in a mattress. It needs to be invested to be powerful. So, maybe we can just adjust one word in that phrase and I'll be good with it. Spend less, invest more? No, that doesn't quite do it. I am a different kind of financial advisor because I also take issue with the first part, spend less. Again, I believe that everything is investing. Even the spending that we do on a daily basis is an investment toward something, intentional or not. Therefore, we should be optimizing for the investment quality of our spending. So, if your money is intentionally spent on the things that are going to get you closer to what you're trying to achieve, that are aligned with your purpose, I will make the argument that maybe you should be spending more on those things, not less. So apparently, when it comes to the standard advice of spend less, save more, I fully disagree with both sides of that advice. I spend a lot more time talking to people about what they should be spending their money on rather than what they shouldn't be. And on the saving side, there's only one thing that can be accomplished by not spending money, and that is having more money, which is a really good thing. But on the other side, there are an infinite number of things that you can accomplish by spending money. So which one is more important to talk about? That's kind of a trick question. Both are important, spending and not spending. But most financial-minded folks and money personalities spend a lot more of their time talking about the not spending part. But I believe that the spending part, most of the time, is more important to focus on in terms of how we use our money. For one, your savings and investment decisions should mostly be automated, and therefore take up a minuscule amount of your time and energy, especially on a daily or weekly basis. Make the decision once and then let it work for you. That is something that we will dig into in a lot more detail at some point when we get into the specifics of budgeting and household money management. Our saving and investing can and should be automated, but only some of our spending decisions can be set up that way. Most can't be. And that is one reason why the spending part, most of the time, is more important when it comes to our thought process and how we handle our money on a daily basis. Remember, we cannot invest toward not. We cannot build something around a void. Positive allocations of do are more powerful and more achievable than negative allocations of don't. And again, Considering that everything is investing, we can and should look at all of our spending decisions as investments. And that puts us firmly in the position of capital allocator, portfolio manager. We have limited resources that we are looking to get the best results from. Intentional allocation toward intentional outcomes. So the only way that I can fix the phrase of spend less, save more, is to throw it out completely and replace it with this one, which is better and has the benefit of being even simpler. Invest better. And that is the frame that we will use to talk about what I think you should spend your money on. Spending is investing, without a doubt. I'd be a hypocrite to claim that everything is investing and then draw a distinction between spending and investing, right? A much better lens to look through, rather than the spending, saving, investing lens, is this: simply the investing lens. How well are we investing based on what we care about and what we are trying to accomplish? And I care a lot more about what money is for. As I said in the last episode, money isn't there for the sake of having a bigger pile of it. Life is not for collecting more money. The purpose of money is to support life. And we can evaluate all of our money decisions on the investing spectrum. Are we investing our resources well toward achieving what we want to achieve? Are we investing well or poorly? So, let's get some of the negatives out of the way in terms of what I think you should not spend your money on. And let's start with experiences. It's not even common or cliche anymore. It's just flat out assumed that everybody knows that we should spend more of our money on experiences over things. There's been research that has shown that we get more happiness, satisfaction, enjoyment from spending our money on experiences versus things. But here is the problem with that. The best experiences that we can have in life are usually the ones that can be had for free. But the best things in life cost money. So there's a disconnect there. You can buy great experiences, but great experiences don't always require money. The experiences you have with your family around the dinner table, the experiences you have out with your friends, the experiences you have with your spouse, and whether a place is cheap or expensive probably has very little correlation to your enjoyment of that activity with those people. The great workout, the great book, the great movie, all experiences that are not highly correlated with the amount of money spent. Most of the best experiences in life do not require a lot of money to achieve them. Great material things, on the other hand, do cost money in every case. So I am not saying that we should have fewer experiences. We should try to have more great experiences. What I'm making the case for is that the most meaningful and important and enjoyable experiences that we can have will correlate very little with how much money we spend on them. A luxury vacation versus a budget vacation, there is a massive difference in how much that costs, at least how much it can cost. But is there a massive difference in the enjoyment of it? For some people, yes, but for others, no, not so much. But why do we hear over and over and over again that we should spend money on experiences versus things, to the point that it has become accepted as, of course, there's no other answer? I think that's bad advice. For one, experiences are driven much more by our investment of time and effort than by our investment of money. But hold that thought for now. And also, I think a lot of it comes down to our remembering selves versus our experiencing selves. And I have a theory around that. I'll probably dig into it deeper in the future, but at a high level, we have terrible memories. And we rewrite history inside of our own heads. We do not accurately remember experiences, especially the more time that has passed since the experience. We often completely rewrite the experiences that we had. Let me give you a quick example. Maybe you can relate. The family vacation that went horribly. Car broke down, lost luggage, missed flights, miserable weather, food poisoning, lost child, temporarily. Nobody had much fun during that trip. Everyone just wished that they were home the whole time. But years later, it's talked about by the family as one of the best trips they ever had. Hilarity ensues when talking about it. Nostalgia. The experiencing self in the moment experienced it pretty badly. The remembering self remembers it fondly. And that is not a bad thing. That is a good thing. If we remembered accurately every bad thing that happened to us, that would be bad, especially if we do that in a relationship. If we do, we're not going to have many relationships. So we rewrite those things. We remember them differently than how they actually occurred. Or we remember the bad and then find humor in it later. Part of it, I think, is that we want to justify the way we spend our resources, our time, our money, and our energy. We can and do lie to ourselves about how an experience was in the past. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't. I'm saying that we do. Compare that to things. Things are objective. If you buy something, let's say an expensive toy for a hobby of yours, and it just sits there collecting dust, or it degrades over time, or it breaks, or it's not as useful as you were hoping it would be, that is objective. That can't be argued with. You can't remember it differently. It's staring you in the face. It is in reality. And things tend to break down over time, whereas experiences tend to get rewritten as better over time. Basically, I think that our enjoyment of experiences versus things is tied to the fact that we lie to ourselves about experiences and we can't really lie to ourselves about things. And the best experiences, again, are the ones that can be had for free, for very little money. So, just to be safe, I'll caveat it again with saying that I am not telling you to have or to seek or invest in fewer experiences. I'm telling you that in most of those cases, the money spent doesn't move the needle much on our enjoyment. It is our investment of time and energy that does, and whether we actually pursue experiences in the first place. So I think the general advice of, if you have extra money, spend it on experiences, is not as good of advice as it's made out to be. Here's my recommendation. For the best results, spend more time and energy on experiences. My second recommendation for where not to spend money might be surprising, considering the amount that I've invested in it myself and continue to invest in it, and I encourage people to invest in. And that is education. I believe that in most cases, spending more money on education does not scale as directly with better results. And this also ties into the truth that the most impactful investments that we can make in our education are not with money. The way we move the needle on return on investment with education is with our time and energy. So this is another one where I am not telling you to not invest in it. I will make the case that investment in education is one of the best investments we can make, and we should invest in it heavily and on an ongoing basis. And some amount of money is required. In some cases, quite a bit of money is required. But the biggest needle mover is not with money. And therefore, for the best results, we should consider investing more of the resources that really matter, time and energy. And this is also counter to a lot of the financial advice out there in terms of how to spend money. We should spend it on learning. We should spend it on education. And sure, I agree. But if you want to acquire a skill in something, and you're looking to spend $100 versus $100,000, that $100,000 will probably accelerate you, but not nearly as much, not nearly as quickly in your learning process as just investing more time and energy. And in terms of what you can learn, a free online course in introductory biology is probably going to net you a pretty darn good amount of knowledge. And depending on who provides the course, maybe even more value and more knowledge than an introductory biology course at a very expensive private university as part of your freshman year on campus. And if you invest time and energy in the free course, but none in the expensive private university course, you can see that the ROI is not affected much by the amount of money spent on it. Again, all these dang caveats. I'm not saying don't go to college. I'm not saying don't go to a private college. I'm not saying don't spend money on education. What I'm saying is this: don't feel like you have to spend a lot more money to get a lot better results. Don't feel like you have to send your son or daughter to the most expensive college they're accepted into, or else they won't have opportunities or a successful career. This is an illustration of when it comes to what you can learn, it is not the amount of money that makes the biggest difference. And this is a bit dangerous for me to talk about, as the chairman of the board of a private K-12 school. But guess what? Everything we teach, from an academic standpoint, could be learned with free online resources. Surprising for me to admit? It shouldn't be. The point of paying for an excellent school is not just for the book knowledge you or your child can receive. For one, unless you have an extremely self-motivated child, you will end up being the one who teaches it to them and holds them accountable for their learning. I've also seen children who are at a great private school and not learning much. It is not all about where they are, but about how they are investing in it themselves. And we can't really force our kids to do it. But it goes far beyond that as well. It is the learning environment. It is who is teaching it to them. It is the accountability and the care that is applied. It is the belief system and the moral framework around what is being taught and how things are being taught. It is who you and your children are surrounded by. And especially when it comes to K-12 education, those things cost money. Also true for higher education. And do not fall for the idea that public education is free. Someone, actually many someones, are paying a lot of money for that as well. So I am not saying don't spend money. I'm saying spend money on what is needed and invest more of the resources that really move the needle. Then the third category where I would like to convince you to redirect your investment dollars elsewhere is relationships. Uh-oh, what am I getting myself into here? I've already said we shouldn't spend money on experiences or education, and now I'm saying relationships? Yes, I am that bold and that crazy. But I think I also have a strong argument. In relationships, money is the least impactful currency we have, by far. In relationships, just like with experiences, just like with education, it is the time and energy that are the king and queen. If you're investing badly with your time and energy in relationships, throwing more money at it is probably going to make it worse, not better. Money is going to do you a whole lot of nothing when it comes to fixing a broken relationship. It might do a little bit of something to strengthen an already strong relationship, but mostly, money is an inert substance in the context of most meaningful relationships, and can act as gasoline in a relationship that is already on fire. And you're picking up on the theme by now. In terms of what you should not spend money on or not allocate more money to, thinking that it's going to make you happier or bring you better results in those areas. It all comes down to money being the least powerful investment macro in those situations. Now, admittedly, calling these things you shouldn't spend money on is a bit clickbait, because you should spend money on them. Money just happens to be the least effective macro that you can invest in each of these. And all three of these areas, experiences, education, and relationships, are incredibly important. And I think you should invest in them more. Just don't fall into the trap of thinking that money will make much of a difference. What we are learning, what we are experiencing, who we are experiencing all of it with, and the quality of those relationships all factor into happiness pretty directly, don't they? And upon examination, we have identified money as somewhat helpful but mostly a non-needle mover in those areas. Wait, did we just, in a roundabout way, answer the question as to why more money doesn't bring us more happiness? I think we did. And that is a lot of the point. It's really easy to say money doesn't make you happy, but few of us actually really believe that. We nod along when someone says it, and then we go back to living our lives as though money is the thing that is standing in the way of us and our ideal level of happiness. But if money doesn't move the needle in those areas that really do contribute to happiness and life satisfaction, why are we surprised when a decade down the road, we make twice as much money, but we're half as happy? More to dig into on that, for sure, but I would like to switch gears. This episode isn't supposed to be about what not to spend money on. So let's talk about what we should spend our money on. First on my list, I think you should spend money on owning your attention. What do I mean by that? Well, we know that our attention is a powerful combination of our time and our energy. What we are giving our attention to is receiving our investment of at least two macros at the same time. And our world is built around trying to capture our attention. One of the ways that attention capture happens most frequently is in advertising, which comes at us all the time. We've become more and more inundated with ads trying to grab our attention. But one of the benefits of the modern world and recent technology is that there are more and more opportunities to own your attention by getting rid of ads, paying to get rid of them. And I think that that is a powerful thing to do. If you spend a lot of time on a platform and you can pay to get rid of the ads to own more of your attention, I think you absolutely should. This idea also ties into the things that we consume for information. News sources, newsletters, podcasts. A lot of what is out there for free is not very free. Or if it truly is free, the quality or the motivation behind it is questionable. Big exception for this podcast, of course. So I think many times when it comes to owning our attention, we are better off paying for high-quality sources. This is also true for the books that we read. Anything we consume through our eyes and our ears, in terms of knowledge and information that we spend a lot of time with, we should consider spending more money on to own our attention and improve the quality. Because what we consume becomes part of us. We understand this intuitively with food. You are made up of the inputs that went into your mouth. Our bodies are literally built out of those ingredients. The same is true when it comes to our minds, our thoughts, our opinions. They are built out of what we consume. What we consume becomes us. So we really should curate our consumption and we should own our attention. Another area that I'd like to touch on, my recommendation to you, is that we should buy and invest in quality. In many cases, we are better off spending more and buying fewer things than we are in spending less and buying more things. And two examples that come to mind are mattresses and shoes. Mostly for illustration purposes, because this can and does apply to many things. But to illustrate the example of buying quality, I think you should spend money on a good mattress and good quality shoes. Because roughly a third of your life is spent laying on your mattress, and roughly a third of your life is spent in your shoes. Maybe more. And in both of those cases, the amount of money that you spend is generally correlated with quality. That shouldn't be your only deciding factor, of course, but it is going to be a factor. Buying quality with the things that we spend a lot of time with, or in, or on, is a smart thing to do. I'm a fan of investing in my sleeping and in my walking. I was thinking about how to comment on investing in the people that we spend a lot of time with, or in, or on, but I don't think I can safely do that. Except to say that we should. Excuse me. Another area that I'd like you to consider spending more money on is lowering the friction for the things that are important to you. What do I mean by that? Well, if you love coffee, I think you should invest in quality coffee, a great coffee setup for your morning, the tools and gear that you need to make a great cup. If that matters, I think you should invest in it. And you shouldn't feel bad about having that expensive coffee machine taking up some space on your counter. If fitness is really important to you, then a membership to a quality gym or your own home gym setup is a great thing to spend money on to lower the friction for the things that are important to you and that you get enjoyment from. If you're into creative work, then a quality computer monitor, good headphones, a well-curated desk setup are worth spending money on. That is what I mean when I say lower the friction for the things that are important to you. And then the next category that is related to this is investing in removing recurring annoyances from your daily life. We all have them. Fix the squeaky door or the door that doesn't shut right. You are allowed to spend money on that. Replace the terrible shower head that makes you hate showering, an activity that should be really enjoyable. Don't ruin it because of a shower head that can be replaced for $50 or less. Upgrade that bad lighting, which is something that affects how we live in a space substantially. Replace that thing that irritates you every single day, that when you stop to think about it, is probably costing way more in terms of annoyance, if you were to quantify it, than it would cost to fix it. Pay to fix that slow or spotty internet. Pay to fix that thing in the house that makes you frustrated every time you go past it. I think those are things that should be at the top of our list of low-hanging fruit of things to spend money on. Is that an oxymoron? Top of the list of low-hanging fruit? Huh. So there you go. My first 4 recommendations. Owning your attention, buying quality in the areas you spend a lot of time with or in or on, lowering the friction of things that are important to you, and removing recurring annoyances from your life. I think if all you did was that, if all you did was reallocate your budget a little bit in those categories, your money might be able to buy you some happiness. This next thing I think you should spend more money on is more of a broad category, and that is buying back our time. Specifically, recapturing more of our time so that we can invest in other meaningful things. This is one of the most powerful things that we can do with our money. And there are a lot of ways that we can buy back our time. Spend money to reclaim time and energy. But it's not just about buying back our time and energy. It's also about then having the discipline to actually invest those reclaimed resources well. Invest that time and energy in other more important things. Because if you buy back your time just to waste it, you didn't make an investment. You just paid a premium to end up with the same result. And we'll touch more on this after I go through some ideas. But I want us to keep that in mind as we go through these things. And one of the best ways, or at least one of the easiest ways, that we can buy back our time is with offloading unenjoyable, repeatable tasks. They're important, and the people who do these jobs are important. Things like house cleaning, laundry service, lawn care, and snow removal will fall into this category for sure. Very important services to have. Wonderful that there are good people out there that perform these services. But they may not be the best way for us to spend our time, especially if we don't enjoy them. And I would say that this is also a benefit of having kids. Unenjoyable, repeatable tasks are essential jobs for kids and teens. If you have kids, please teach them to learn to own these jobs instead of just outsourcing them. Okay, how about grocery delivery? Some people, like my wife, enjoy grocery shopping. A lot of us don't. Actually, my wife says that she goes grocery shopping because she doesn't want someone else picking her produce. And when it comes to grocery delivery, the world has conspired to make it very cheap and easy to have it delivered right to our door. So go for it. It is a wonderful way of buying back our time. And if a task is repeatable, relatively easily replaceable, and doesn't bring you much satisfaction, or you outright hate it, it's a prime candidate to convert money into time. Another category of buying back time is buying back switching time. And this is what I mean by that. A lot of our lost time during the day is not lost in big chunks. It's lost in transitions. Switching from bed to breakfast, then breakfast to gym, from gym to shower, from shower to work, or getting the kids to school, then to work, then from work to home, then from dinner to chores to downtime, then downtime to bed. In between those is switching time. And all of us would be better off keeping our switching costs as low as possible. And most of us try to live this way pretty naturally. Even if you have a home gym, even if your family is home most of the time, you work at home, imagine a life where in every hour you spend some chunk of it working, some chunk of it working out, some chunk of it spending time with your family. That is not going to produce the best results, versus allocating a big chunk of time to working, then being done with it. Then allocating a chunk of your time to your fitness, your working out, and then being done with that. Allocating a big chunk of your time to spending with your family, and then being done with them. Because yes, there's a switching cost. It takes us a little while to get into the activity, but there's that transition time in between. Every time we switch to a different task, it takes time away from investing in those things. And if we can pay to lower those transition costs in our lives, it is worth it. If you have a chance to, you should try to live closer to where you work, where your kids go to school, where you work out. If there's better parking to be had, where you have to go every day or multiple times a week, you should probably consider spending a bit more money on it. If there are tools that allow us to get into what we're doing faster, more seamlessly, speed the transition, we should consider spending money on them. Again, my favorite example of this is with my home gym, which, based on the recent upgrade to it, I've come to start calling it Gym Home. That is worth spending money on for me. And for everyone I know that has invested in a home gym setup and actually uses it, they report that it is money well spent for them as well. Again, a big benefit of that is buying back switching time. The other category I'd like to talk about in buying back time is with buying back time from the things that you're bad at or that you don't really like. Related to what we talked about earlier, we should practice certain things that we are not good at in order to get better at them. But if it's just something that has to be done, and we, as contributing adults, kind of hate it, and by kind of, I mean really hate it, we should really consider paying someone else to do it. That DIY project that we're thinking we should do ourselves, because we shouldn't hire somebody else to do it, feeling like we have to figure out our own taxes versus hiring a tax professional if you're hitting your head against the wall with it, trying to just grit through and figure something out, versus paying a professional to accelerate your learning. I know I said earlier that education isn't a great one to spend more money on, but we understand nuance. Not the case for everyone, but is the case for some. Sometimes paying to increase the effectiveness of our reps is exactly what we should be doing. And if something takes you 5 hours to do yourself that could be paid for at 2 hours times your hourly earning rate, you may not actually be saving money going the DIY route. You may just be misallocating your time. And this next recommendation is less of a specific thing to spend your money on and more of a point in time. Seasons where time is at a bigger premium. We should focus on buying back our time in high value or high demand seasons. There are times in life where buying back our time is just a lot more valuable. When we have young kids, when we are in a really busy season of work, when we're trying to recover from a health standpoint, our time is not equally valuable in every season. There are periods when buying back time has outsized returns, and it doesn't mean that we have to do that forever. As an example from my life, the only time my wife and I ever hired a house cleaner was a little over 10 years ago. We had 3 young kids, early grade school, a toddler, and a baby. And we were in the middle of a life transition. We were selling our home and planning to move out of state. So for a few months during that period of time, we hired a house cleaner that saved us a lot of headache and a lot of time, especially having to keep the home clean for showings, for selling it. Interestingly, we came to find out that she used Windex to clean everything. Truly everything. We let that one go. Not let go of the house cleaner. The fact that the Windex was used on everything. Whatever. We had bigger things to worry about. And that was an investment that was worth making. We decided to stop making that investment when our life moved out of that season. And as our kids have gotten older and are now able to handle more of that workload, we now have a pretty decent cleaning crew. There are a lot of other categories that we could talk through in terms of how to buy back our time. This episode is not meant to be a comprehensive list of what you should or should not spend money on. This is to give you ideas and direction. But this is what I would like to say to close out talking about how to spend money on buying back our time. Most people shouldn't buy back their time yet in most things. Why? Because they have not learned to invest that time that they buy back well. Most people who buy back their time, or think that they should, are going to replace that time with low-value consumption, otherwise known as wasting time. And we should be sure if we are spending our money buying back our time, and this is going back to what I was talking about at the beginning of this segment, if you buy back your time just to waste it, you did not make an investment. You just paid a premium to get the same result. So we have to ask ourselves, have we learned how to invest our time well that we buy back? Or are we just freeing it up so that we can spend it on low-value activities? If the latter is the case, we need to just be investing our time in those things and not buying it back. Buying back our time only works if you have somewhere better to invest in it and then you actually do that. And it doesn't have to be productive per se, but it does have to be valuable. An example of that is spending more quality time with family. Maybe not productive, maybe not ROI achieving in a money sense, but very valuable. Buying back time is one of the clearest examples of converting one investment macro into another, money into time. And that can be powerful. But then ask, what is the return on that investment once I buy that time back? This is the first part of me telling you what I think you should do with your money. In the next episode, we are going to dive deeper into the same topic from a couple different and very applied angles that I think will be surprising and delightful, and may give you permission to spend more money in a way that you did not expect. So, until then, I would like to say thank you for investing in yourself and in those around you. I will talk to you next time. I don't care one bit about what other people think of how I spend my money. Now, how do I find more ways to show people how I spend my money?